I think just for the context of the audience, we have, I guess, on this panel, seems to be singing quite a lot. We have a technology solutions company. We have a well-known sports agency, which is everything from football World Cups downwards and upwards. We have a racing series, which is across different continents. And we have, let me get this right, publisher, platform, rights owner, promoter. Yeah. And then we have me. I work for the International Cricket Council, which is the global federation for the sport. We are probably sort of much more in the rugby category as opposed to the Olympics or football. I head up their digital sales, which has been a very new growth area for us, especially in the context of participation. Because of two reasons. A, we've been able to take and engage audiences outside of television markets, which again goes back to our panel in terms of video and fan engagement. And the second piece has been we've been able to actually engage people who don't necessarily want to invest 4, 5, 6 hours in a cricket match, but just want to stay in touch from a short form video content perspective in the live window. Perhaps I can sort of start off by just trying to leave it open. And before I start, but just by the way, in terms of housekeeping, let's just keep the Q&A free flowing. I believe we'll have a couple of mics, so please raise your hand and introduce yourself if you can, please. And I'm sure there'll be questions coming up, clarifications coming up. We'll keep it nice and fluid rather than wait towards the end where a lot of your good questions will be lost. So we don't want to do that. Okay, let's just go in terms of where we are as a business. If I could sort of start off at a very, very high level in terms of video, fan engagement, and technology. Could you give us some examples of, when you talk about mass participation in the context of sports events, what does that mean for your business? Lorna, perhaps start with you and then go around the table.
Thank you. For us, that is our business. We are mass participation. So in some ways, I probably have the easiest answer of all the panel. We have, across the 6 races, 250,000 runners. Tim's just explained all that we do and all that we are. Our business isn't about generating revenue or sponsorship. Our business is the runners. It's mass participation. It is bringing those 6 together. And really our main message is we grow the global community of running. So for us, to go back to the topic, video content is key. I mean, that was me that told Suan that video would get her going. Those videos are the moments that capture the experience of that person, but it resonates with so many other people.
Sure.
Not everybody wants to sit and watch 2 hours, 1 minute of ELLIOT Kipchoge running in Berlin. They want us to package that and put that on a channel that people can enjoy it, feel they're part of it, feel they can relate to it, but not having to sit and always watch long form. So for us, video is key, and our whole focus around that video is to engage those mass participants.
Sure. Kuni-san, if I can come to you, obviously Dentsu pioneers in what probably in Asia has been the strongest sports media economy for over 3 decades. Panasonic, Goodyear, Toyota were early TOP partners, and then Sony's been with FIFA as well. What does, or what should, I guess, mass participation mean for you and your clients?
Thank you. I think mass participation, a lot of people think about marathon running or cycling, but for me, mass participation could be anything, Like, for instance, rugby could be rugby because of next year, Japan hosting the Rugby World Cup. A lot of nationwide, a lot of kids, school now start to participate what rugby is all about. A lot of kids have a chance to play the rugby, which is a lot of kids never even touched the ball before, So football is very, of course, famous sports, but rugby is something new to Japan. But of course, last World Cup we had a quite good result, to beat South Africa. So now it's a lot of people feel close to the rugby. So rugby could be the mass participation because a lot of schools already start to engage for the how to, to play the rugby, how to touch the ball, how to throw the ball. So this could be the mass participation. And also the Olympics 2020. And also, this is a lot of education process in Japan, a lot of volunteers, So mass participation is, for me, definition is could be anything, As long as a chance to play the sports, could be sports, So it doesn't have to be physical, sports. Could be, esports could be either you see online millions gamers watching. So this is also part of the mass participation. So definition is a bit, for me, it's a very broad definition. I am very much understanding of the mass participation means to me, to the company.
I guess the one common element perhaps, and maybe Sam, you can expand on that, is individuals committing time. I think time is the very finite resource. Maybe if you look at that as a variable, whether it's about training 10 hours a week for a race or training 2 hours a day of esports, as the case might be. What's been your experience like? Because I think it's a very unique position at Sina Weibo where you've come in, you're head of international business, you've developed your own formats and franchises, but also it's very unique in the sense that it's a non-Twitter, non-Facebook country and a very young country, a very sporting country.
Right. I mean, I think Sina and Weibo, I mean, that's really our strength, is having the online digital media platform. And then on top of those platforms, we're building our own events. So it's quite a unique advantage that we have where, we have 430 million followers on Weibo on a monthly basis, and we have another 100 million on Sina. So using all that power, we're able to build our own events, right? And really gain a lot of views and a lot of views for these events. So our flagship product is our 3-on-3 basketball tournament, which is now the largest in the world. We also have a 5-on-5 futsal tournament, it's the largest in Asia. And we consider these very much mass participation type events.
Could you give some numbers on the 3-on-3 participation?
Yes,
number of teams
so we have 82 cities in China. We had 65,000 participants this year. Next year, we're actually looking to do 150 cities. And in 50 of those 150 cities, what we'll do is instead of just a normal tournament every weekend, we're going to have continuous basketball play for 6 months. And that's a new format we're pushing out, and that's kind of what you're talking about, which is, we want the fans to be able to play at their own pace, at their own time, and we feel having that type of a continuous play will be really helpful for them. In terms of video views, obviously Weibo is a platform that we own that has, one of the biggest social media followers in China. We did 1.5 billion video views on our 3-on-3 basketball tournament this year.
How long was the season? 6 months?
6 months. So we go into
200 million a month broadly.
Right.
50 million a week.
Right.
Pretty big number. Elliot, what does all of this mean for you for what is effectively a very pioneering cloud-based video technology solution platform? I mean, you have somebody who's looking to engage participation because that's the nature of the business. We've got agency and federation folks who are sort of trying to make money out of every dollar, and then people who are sitting on millions of followers that they can build properties. What does that mean for your business?
Well, for us globally, it means an incredible amount. It means that we're able to innovate for these businesses in video production. We're able to provide them with scale and the ability to get video content into the hands of a consumer in the right format, on the right device, in real time or near real time. So if you think of the context of the growth of the sport or the event, that's allowing them to match engagement and audience and grow audience, but it's also from a commercial point of view, helping them to attract new sponsors, new partners, and being part of that collective that we've all discussed this morning. So, I mean, I think we sort of sit behind the curtain in the whole sort of ecosystem, but we with this growth, with this sort of dislocation in the traditional media space, that's presenting us with opportunities globally and locally, whether that's working with somebody like La Liga and who do a lot of grassroots and mass participation grassroots stuff, or whether that is working hyper-locally in a place like Singapore with potential partners around localized sort of events and sports. The relevancy of cloud video production and getting content to consumers quickly is going to become ever more important.
Sure. Kuni-san, Elliot mentioned about sponsors and about how we're sort of moving well beyond television. How much are you finding, two questions, I guess. One, are the same sponsors looking at digital activations, or are you finding new breeds of sponsors who are coming in who are much more focused on participation to grow the brand as opposed to performance? Because if you look at historically, brands have associated their brand value with performance, being the best, taking a photograph with the gold medalist, as opposed to people who are looking at participation, which is the first-person engagement. What's that experience like in Japan and in your client base?
This is the very tricky nowadays, because a lot of us, of course, even for us, for Dentsu as agencies, are struggling to sell the sponsorship, because the sponsorship is no longer sponsorship that we saw before. So now it's a lot of the brands already well-known brands, so the brands is not looking to put enable, the branding exposure is not their interest. Their interest is more how to engage to the fans. And every time we propose this sponsorship, make sure that they have a certain budget for activation. It's very important they have activation budgets. So that's why now it's a very difficult hybrid, so more, of course, mass participation, very attractive to the brands because of they have direct access to the fans. Data is very important. Normally we don't provide any data. Also, we don't give so much access to the consumer direct. But now sponsors asking direct contact. Yeah. So this is something even mass participation in sports sponsorship sales is very struggling. But we have to find a way how to engage more fans, and activation is a key. Like Tokyo Marathon, for instance, last many years, a very successful marathon in Tokyo. Over 50,000 people, running, over 50,000 people running, but sponsors over already 30 brands already. Those 30 brands, once they're into the sponsors, they continue to be a part of the marathon, Tokyo Marathon ecosystem. So, and those sponsors provide a lot of activations, and also the runners is very enjoying every year. Once they participate Tokyo Marathon next year, a lot of people want to continue.
It's a highly personal experience. We saw the video of the testimonials from the runners.
And also activation very unique. One of the banana doll, banana companies, they print all of my time on the banana. Yeah. So once I wanted to go, then my time on the surface of the banana.
Very interesting.
So I have my personalized banana by doll, sponsored by doll. Then everybody start to put on the video, the social media, talk about this is my time. Yeah. So this is a very unique activation. A lot of now activation is a key to success for the mass participation in the sponsorship, and also sponsors keep continuing.
Just a brief anecdote for the audience, which sort of ties into your point, Kuni-san. My role at the ICC did not exist 3.5 years ago, because the rights which had to be sold to the market didn't exist. It was fundamentally in-match, near-live, short-form video highlights. We are today in 160 countries, 35 licensees. And we made a fair amount of money. It's the largest, fastest growing, highest EBITDA revenue stream. You're looking at a serious 8 to 9 figure number, which is significant for cricket. But the real value that we are finding, which is unanticipated, is, I think I mentioned earlier, we are going into non-television markets, Southeast Asia, Europe. But my counterpart in sponsorship absolutely loves my licensees, because the World Cup next year on television will go to about 1.2 billion individuals. The digital licensees across 30-odd licensees in 160 countries will go to 500 million people. So all of a sudden, the exposure the brand's going to get and the highly personalized across multiple languages, all of a sudden one revenue stream has actually ended up impacting positively the other side, which has been quite interesting for us. One more question for you. Sorry, Sam, you want to come back?
Yeah, I wanted to add something. So I think another thing and something we've really considered is kind of differentiating your products, right? So obviously for marathons, then you kind of just have one marathon. But where for basketball, we're trying to build a pyramid. So at the bottom, you have this continuous 6-month play that I mentioned, and then you have kind of a regional city level, then you have a domestic final, and at the very top, we're building an international invitation tournament. That's very much no longer a mass participation event, but more of an elite event. And at different levels, we're engaging different sponsors. Right, so someone like Peak, who is our apparel sponsor, is coming in for that 6 months, because obviously if people are playing all the time, then there's more apparels that's needed, and they want to advertise to people like that. And at the very top, we have Samsung as a partner, who is an international brand who wants to be engaged with China, but they want to engage not at the mass participation level, but at the very top level.
So I think classic sort of, there's a value for a brand to be a performance association, and then there's a value for the brand to be participation association.
Right, and you have to differentiate it for the brand. If you don't do it for them, you say, hey, this is my entire thing, then different products, they're not able to pick up, different brands are not able to pick up the different levels.
And different audiences, as the case. Lorna?
I was going to say that does work in running as well. I mean, if you take the pyramid example, your marathon may be the top of your pyramid, but if you look at the 6 races that we work with, and you take New York Roadrunners as an example, and Doug's here, they don't just do the marathon. They have a half marathon, they have a 10K, they have running events every single week. So they're not just looking at those 52,000 people running in November, they're creating a community under that where they have grassroots programs, they do youth running, they then get people into their first 5K, from there people tend to go to 10, and so on and so forth. So they have different partners and sponsors along the way that may not sponsor the marathon per se, but may help that build that pyramid, if you like.
Fascinating. So what you have is actually there's almost like in the race week itself, you've got multiple categories of competitions and then the grand finale. That's to your point about variety in the same time period. And then Sam's point is much more around expanding that across time and actually creating a feeder, which are two different kinds of opportunities.
Well, running do that across the year too. I mean, Doug works nearly every weekend in New York as the example. They have events in Central Park and other boroughs to get people running, and Park Run does it every single week. So marathon may be someone's goal in the year, but they're certainly not they're taking part in other events throughout the year. So there is that growth and that build and the opportunity for different sponsors to touch them on their journey to that 42K.
Sure. Kunihito, a question for you. From an agency perspective, do you tend to approach individual sports from a participation perspective differently compared to team sports? What Lorna just said, the flexibility of sort of scheduling a run depending on who you are as one person, even if it's part of a peloton in cycling, as the case might be, as opposed to having 6 teams of 11 turn up on a Saturday afternoon. It's logistically quite different. Are those sort of variables you keep in mind?
I think the last part, I thought I'm going to mention for next year's mass participation is, of course, as you mentioned, is something difficult. Even though I like to participate, of course, sometimes the time doesn't suit, So also, if you have some date for the marathon, I have to do the training, etc. But I just want to do it. I want to enjoy casually. So every morning I can walk, so I can do something my own. So mass participation could be maybe personal participation, individual participation. It's become a mass participation. So it'd be good to some apps or something, start to create for whoever to run or walk, in their own pace, to become mass participation. So marathon event always talk about the event itself, but sometimes we could have something casual, walk or But I like to see some apps, Then I personally like to use, But sometimes more individually, I see a lot of people walk in the morning or run 1-2 kilos.
Yeah.
But of course, running event is a very difficult to run full marathon. But this is something individually, everybody, pretty much, from all my friends, everybody,
correct,
either walk or short run. So
depending on the age group, it's open to everybody else. Elliot, I'm just curious whether, because you run an enterprise technology, business to business model business. Too many businesses in that. What Kuni-san is talking about very much is the consumer opportunity. I'm just wondering, rather than broadcasters, event promoters, publishers at some level being your clients, could you visualize a day whereby it could be the health promotion board, or it could be brands who are looking to empower communities and citizens in terms of short form video and engaging and video diaries, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, for those that are new to Grabyo, we're 4 years old, nearly 5 years old, and traditionally have worked with a lot of big federations and then big global and regional broadcasters to help them get content to consumers quickly. But increasingly, as consumption habits change, as technology changes, as platforms have emerged, we're sort of being approached by a lot of government boards, a lot of different brands, to work and support similar things to what we've seen this morning, whether that is projects like Sports Singapore, whether that is something like an Octagon. All of these types of clients are sort of coming through to us now looking for easy ways in which to navigate and exploit the opportunity. Because the traditional media business is in complete flux at the moment. And that's providing challenge in how you make money. It's providing challenge in how you get different audiences engaged and stuck on what you're trying to deliver. And we're enablers to be able to try and do that. But to your point, a brand is becoming a content publisher. And their business is under duress, and they need to revise how they're doing things and what ROI they're getting. So that's where we come into play. So we see a ton of opportunity in that space.
Great. Okay. I think we have a question from the floor. Chris.
Elliot, just interested along those lines is, we spoke about brands, but you didn't speak much about rights holders in this space. Do you see that being a cost issue? So we've heard the pinnacle of the World Marathon Majors obviously pretty different budgets to a small community event, getting out there with local engagement. Do you see that creating that content is either prohibitive or is perceived to be prohibitive by smaller events, and maybe it's a big opportunity to be able to use a platform like yours?
Yeah, definitely. I think, Chris, it's a mixture of both. So, Grabyo, again, we're a platform, web browser based, a simple kind of like Apple technology platform where on the fly you can create highlights, you can create short form content, or you can live stream on the go. So if you are a marathon organizer, you can potentially film that content live and then distribute it in real time or near real time in a ton of different formats. You can have a strategy for Snapchat, a strategy for Facebook, and a ton more. But we're providing scale, so there is technology, not just Grabyo, in ways in which you can reduce that cost or that perceived cost of doing so. So there's a massive opportunity there, both from filming on mobile app, in the cloud, and then delivering it within a couple of clicks of a mouse. The key is for the future of this, if you consider that 90, I think it's around 90% of internet traffic is going to be short form, mobile video by 2020. And then you take into consideration at least 50% of traditional television consumption has declined since 2013. Then, there's a lot of opportunity there, but it means that businesses, whether you're an event organizer, a broadcaster, or a sponsor, has got to get their sort of A game involved into navigating that change, because it's going to come up very quickly within the next sort of 5 to 6 years. We're an enabler of that, but we want to be part of the ecosystem, and I think we're very new to sort of traditional mass participation, but the barriers to that are closing, but the opportunities are rising. It's just about, I think it's about having a content strategy and then navigating that as easy as you can do.
Can I just claim a mic with you, just a quick follow-up on that, in terms of then the perception of the quality of what that content needs to be like. So my sense is that maybe lots of people in this room saying, we can't afford a production company, and I'm just interested in your thoughts about, hey, it can be developed on the fly. You spoke about consolidation apps and those kind of, I'd love you to speak to that.
Yeah, another good question. I think that whether you're a grade A federation, a good example of this will be Wimbledon tennis. We've worked with them for 4 years. They now distribute their content via Grabyo in the cloud, on the fly, to 200 countries around the world. And it often isn't the shot down the line that's the winning match point. It's the ancillary content around that event that has captured the imagination of different consumers in different markets. Now, naturally, that they will exploit different markets based on players, whether that's Chile or India or other emerging markets. But it's whether you're an event organizer, large or small, that ancillary content that you can capture on the fly. It doesn't matter about the quality. I mean, if it is super bad quality, that doesn't help. But we provide the mechanism to be able to deliver good content. And it goes back to what I think Lizzie was saying earlier at Octagon, which is the authenticity of it. There'll always be a place for that professional piece, whether you've got a broadcast partner or a digital broadcast partner. But it's the authenticity that's going to capture the imagination of mass consumers, especially consumers in this space that are looking to achieve something or to be aspirational and have life goals. So I think it becomes important.
Interesting, I guess, Chris's point, I'll come to you in a bit, sir. It's Chris's point and your response. I guess what we're fundamentally looking at is the essence of storytelling. And I guess one of the things that I want to sort of talk about was, if you look at your experiences, Kuni-san and Sam, in many ways, I guess my question is, what are the common mistakes when you're sort of going from an English to a non-English language audience for a brand or an event promoter to make sure that your storytelling remains relevant? What's been your experience, and either of you want to start?
I just want to make 2 comments in terms of the broadcasting marathon events. In terms of production costs, is quite getting higher and higher for the marathon events. So, and also I don't know how much a broadcaster is looking to invest to produce the events and broadcast.
Yeah.
Because of, I don't know how attractive the mass participation as a content for the broadcasters. So in terms of saving the cost, could be we could ask some drones, to do some. Its cost is much lower.
Yeah.
So as some people start to try the drone broadcast, is and of course the marathon event doesn't have to be high, too much complicated to production. So some people start to lower the cost, save some cost by using drones. So this is something, of course, we need to look at the new opportunity how to save a cost.
Indeed.
But in Japan, still the Tokyo Marathon, for instance, still broadcast online on the free-to-air channel,
Right.
television channels, because the Tokyo Marathon is very interesting. The very fun the contents. A lot of celebrities running, a lot of a costume, right? A lot of story to tell, So the production point of view, Japanese broadcasters to the marathon, Tokyo Marathon, they don't talk about so much time. They talk about story. So some features, some stories, some couples, so some celebrities, so a lot of performance, So this is something. So that 2-3 hours TV program, this is a show.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of TV rating, Tokyo Marathon in Japan, still high rating.
This goes back to Lorna's point, isn't it? It's not about the 2 hours of the winners, actually. It's not about the 2 hours of the winner winning the race. It's actually what happened along the way across different categories and segments of demand.
Yeah, and for the runner that finishes in 7 hours 40 or whatever it is, they've ran the same course as Kipchoge, so they're able to share that experience, those miles with them, and then to capture that in a video content. Like the last video that Tim and Chris showed was our wrap from New York. So we didn't just focus on the elite runners. You probably saw a couple of seconds of that. It was all about the 52,000 people that also had the same journey and the same experience as those elite runners. So all of our 6 races have broadcast rights and deals, and they have a mixture of you can access it online in other countries and so on and so forth. And for us as the Abbott World Marathon Majors, we're trying to sort of encapsulate all that, if you like. We're not duplicating or trying to drown out what the races do. We work hand in hand, so out with all the communications people at each race. We're trying to share the story of the 6-star finishers, but giving the feel of the whole race, so that every time we produce something throughout the year, there's that synergy and that consistency, so people start to see that we're the series and we're partners, which then meets our goal of creating this global community, because everybody feels that whether they've run Tokyo or whether they've run Berlin or Boston, Chicago, they're all coming together and they're part of something special.
Fascinating.
So for us, it's not about content that a brand can sell or a sponsor can attach themselves to. It's really genuinely about making those runners feel that they are part of it.
Yeah, yeah. So it goes back to your ancillary point, I guess. But I guess at the same time, it's Wimbledon's 2 weeks in a year and you're done, whereas you've got something which is like a traveling circus. So I want to pick up, Sam, on a point Kuni-san made around celebrities running. When we spoke about this panel a week or so ago, you were giving me a phenomenal example of how you've taken your sport and the coverage and you've really gone mainstream from a celebrity angle, haven't you?
Yeah, I think the perspective of a rights holder and a broadcaster are somewhat different, right? From a rights holder perspective, you're trying to make sure that you run a very good tournament. You're trying to make sure that everything kind of goes off well. From a broadcaster perspective, you're looking for highlights. You're looking for things that attract people's attention to make them watch the game. And so since we're both of those things, it makes it quite convenient this goes back to the sponsorships as well, where for sponsors, we're also looking for viral content to make sure that we engage the sponsors and we put their brands seamlessly into some of these viral content. And so one of the things that we really try to do with celebrities is to get them to promote our game for us. And thankfully we have Weibo, which is the biggest social media platform, so we have a lot of the biggest accounts on that promoting our game. So we're actually having our international tournament this weekend, and we've invited Nick Young, former champion of the Golden State Warriors, to come and join. And he posted on his Weibo account yesterday, and he said, "I'm tired of 5-on-5, gonna try some 3-on-3." So that kind of stuff really helps. And obviously we have celebrities who play a lot of basketball in their free time anyway and play soccer in their free time. So we try to get those guys engaged and not just to do a shout out, but to really kind of be integrating into your campaign to say, hey, here's my top 10 plays from last week. Like, can you critique that as opposed to just doing a shout out? So I think really getting them involved makes a lot of sense.
They're a basketball fan first, and that makes an equal relationship with all the fans as opposed to being an actor or a singer.
Right, you have to, I mean, you can't just go down the list of the most
Indeed.
popular celebrities. You have to find the ones that are actually interested
Correct.
in the games.
Authenticity, I guess, going back to your point. We have a question from the audience. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. It's Eitan from Pick2Go. So the question is for ELLIOT, but all the forum. So we're seeing, you know, in basketball or tennis games, you have players that are the stars, and you have a wide audience that are used to watch it, and broadcasting in real time makes sense. How do you translate or activate this model in races, especially if it's not, you know, the Tokyo Marathon, but a smaller local race? Who would be the audience to watch it? What type of content would you broadcast?
Yeah, that's quite a broad question. I think, well, I mean, I think you definitely need to target. It depends on platform, basically. So we're integrated with different platforms. So, you know, if you're looking at certain markets, you know, Line in Thailand would be very strong. If you're in the West, Facebook, Instagram is going to be very strong, and, you know, different platforms for different markets. But then you're invariably on those platforms, we are dealing with a younger demographic, and they don't necessarily want, you know, the kind of the same sort of aspirational story that might be targeted to a traditional television audience. They want something different. They want to be entertained or intertwined with the event in different ways. So then you want to participate in social comments or social polls or have graphic overlays, and there's different things you can do in that within a cloud environment or using technology. So I think it is getting the data first to understand what audience it is you want to target, but then also having the content strategy that underpins that. And that will be invariably fundamentally different to TV. You know, Facebook are experiencing this right now, where they are an acquirer of rights, but they're also, you know, they're also a direct-to-consumer platform, but they're having to change how they're going to perhaps deliver those rights to that audience. Similar things with the events that you're talking about. I think understanding those two things and bringing them together, it's then relatively easy to deliver that to audiences. But certainly for young audiences, they don't want the traditional form of broadcast. They want it given in sort of wacky and different kind of engaging ways. But the barriers to that have dropped significantly. So there's some really interesting opportunity.
Great, thanks, Elliot. More to sort of move the conversation along a bit beyond sort of mainstream sport, whether it's basketball, football, running, as the case might be, and talk a bit about esports, and talk a bit about mixed martial arts, which are perhaps the two larger sort of historically niche sports codes, which have really come on the last 12 to 15 months, if not more. I guess my question is, we spoke about it earlier in terms of where does participation stop and where does performance-based association start? And do you feel that right now esports and MMA are sort of at that cusp where they've begun as participation and still trying to find their sort of performance-based identity, or the future is for them to be largely a participation type code, and there's a different business model similar to marathons, as the case might be? KUNIHITO, anyone have a go?
This is something, esports is something new to us, new to everybody, of course. And of course, it's not the physical sports, but a lot of the people participating. So this is part of, for me, part of this is esports, also part of mass participation. But this is something I really still, looking to see what the esports are all about, especially for commercial agencies from point of view. I don't know how to monetize, from esports at this moment. So, but still, everybody, look into the esports. So, esports could be, of course, esports part of mass participation, but I don't know how to monetize and how to broadcast as good content. Yeah. And also, I don't know whether esports really become like a marathon. It's totally different. It's outdoor versus indoor.
Yeah.
And a totally different nature of so-called sports. Yeah. But again, this is in terms of the reach, is a huge global reach where a lot of reach. Something I don't know because the event is still behind the scenes. A lot of people watch on the online. So this is something I'm still working on that. But this is something very interesting to talk about it as a mass participation event.
Just as an anecdote, League of Legends had their grand finals in Beijing. I think it was last year. The Bird's Nest, the famous stadium for the Olympics. It got sold out in 2 hours. So again, goes back to your point about concentration of demand is there. The question really is it only for, like boxing, only for premium events? Or are there sort of other tiered performances and a bit of ladder that can be also around performance and profit? Sam?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely see the interest, like you mentioned, in League of Legends. I mean, on Weibo, it's millions and millions of followers. From our events portfolio, we have 8 events right now, in addition, including the basketball and the football. Esports is not one of them. MMA is not one of them. But, you know, I think esports is one that we're thinking about how to, I mean, for both of them, I think we're trying to find the right way to approach and to enter into those markets. I don't think a standalone esports mass participation event makes sense for us. But you know, our 3-on-3, we're in 82 cities. We're building these events every weekend. Why don't we add a NBA 2K tournament next to it? So that's an idea that we've obviously talked about. I mean, that's something that's relatable. We're not just going out there and creating League of Legends, which is not our expertise. But we already have basketball fans who are watching online and offline, and adding a 2K type event on top of that makes a lot of sense, right? MMA is one that, you know, I think it takes a little more work, but I think from a publisher perspective or from a media platform perspective, we would love to do some sort of a show where we're getting people more interested in fitness, in working out, and potentially leading into MMA. I don't think MMA as a mass participation event works, but as a fitness, you know, having some MMA fighters coming out and shooting some videos about how they keep fit, what are some of the exercises they're doing. I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense.
It's interesting. It's almost like it's the ancillary to what's happening outside the courts of Wimbledon, whereas here it's actually the ancillary of actually preparing for the bout, and that in itself becomes a activity in its own right.
Yeah, I think with MMA, they've got a challenge in that it's fight sports. So, you know, you've invariably got a challenge there where, you know, you've got to get over those barriers in terms of how people consume it. If you look at, you know, the UFC, they've done a sterling job in the last 20 years in getting a mass global audience, but now they're probably having some challenge in how they can, you know, get their message far deeper into an emerging young audience in international markets. You look at one championship out here, they've got a completely different strategy, which is they're trying to pitch in some of the values that they have that come out of Asia, whether we believe in, you know, whether all of those values sit with different demographics. They're doing that, and they're pushing the content out without a paywall. So, and that's with a long-term vision to build audience. So I think there's going to be different models on that. With esports, there's a massive audience, but, you know, I remember 10 years ago people saying the mobile industry won't work, the smartphone won't work, there'll be no money in that. Where audience goes, invariably money will follow. The problem is we're in from a traditional media sense anyway, we're in a tunnel at the moment of flux. And how these different monetization models emerge is going to take some time.
I mean, just again to share an anecdote, about a month or so ago, I was at an event in Phuket, and the head of content at Telkomsel is a large telecom operator, mobile and fixed line in Indonesia. They have about 140 to 160 million SIM cards, quite large. They, over the last 3 years, have developed mobile gaming as a participatory community event, 40,000 teams, and 104 cities, going back to your point. And it's gone from actually engaging to brand activation to actually being a revenue stream, whereby data consumption for gaming now outstrips traditional video content 3-to-1. Which again, once the audience is there, you've got to sort of recalibrate your business as you go. I'm just conscious of time. We've got a couple of minutes, so I'll probably throw it around to you guys on 30 seconds each. What do you believe is the next big thing that will be achieved? As in, it's relevant to mass participation. It may or may not be in your sector or not, but we'll see that being realized and achieved next year, which you feel actually is something which is going to be very, very good for either your sport or your business. Lorna, you want to start with that? The gentlemen are flummoxed, obviously. So.
For us, I think in the running landscape, something that is going to grow probably quite quickly is the world of virtual running. So if you look at esports, the example, virtual running is gaining a lot of traction. It brings together that global community. Again, you don't necessarily need to use New York as the example. They have an exclusive partnership with Strava. They have virtual races, everything from a 5K through to the full marathon. All you need is your Strava membership. And 400 people ran the TCS New York City Marathon, but not in New York. They did it at home, they did it in Florida, they did it in India, they did it in China.
Nice.
They were sent their own unique virtual TCS New York City Marathon medal. by doing it virtually, they earned their own place in the 2019 edition of the actual marathon, so they will then go to New York. So they're using that as a tool to encourage people globally to want to achieve that status of getting their place on the start line. So other companies are doing it. I think virtual running will grow, and for us, we're looking at that, but we're just continually looking at ways to make runners, whether they've done 1 or 6, or will never do a marathon but aspire to feel that they are part of that community. So that's the thing, is continually finding ways to engage those runners and show them that time's not an issue. You can run, all you need is shoes.
It really is gamification enters mainstream sport from a 3-dimensional perspective. Elliot, you want to have a go?
Yeah, I'm struggling with that one a little bit. But,
that's right. So finish on next.
No, I would say, yeah, technology such as what Lorna's outlined. I think then in terms of consumption, I think some of the technology that we're involved in, cloud, broadcast, the change in broadcast will happen, and I think there'll also be a change in, it's never ending, but there's the sense that I get is there's a change in how sponsors are viewing their properties and how they want to diversify. I think you've seen a lot of brands that have traditionally been invested in very high-level sports such as golf and football, and they're now looking to go far, far deeper into the psyche of a consumer, and I think mass participation plays a part in that. So I think it's going to be a very interesting 12 months from that point of view.
Excellent.
Such a virtual marathon. This is something I also thinking that of course this is if there's apps, for sure I'm going to go into use. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of brands want to reach to the customers. So if I run every 5 minutes, every day 5 minutes, then if I, run 2 hours a month, then sponsor give us a special voucher coupon. So this is something more individualized, personal.
Like an incentive pyramid.
Yeah, this is something I'm very looking at. And a virtual marathon is something next stage, as I see. Yeah.
You can make out a race series promoter from an agency man. He sort of found a way of actually making some money out of it. Sam, last but not least.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. I think personalizing and making these participants feel like, that there's something in it for them that is very interesting, whether it's gamification or something else. One thing that pops to mind is we're trying to work with a technology that's able to recognize, faces and basketball players on the court, so that when basically any participant will be able to pull up their highlights after the games. Then they can immediately share it on Weibo, they can do everything that they want. And that's something that they would love to do, because everybody's participating, but they still want that individual attention. So I think that's a big area.
Great. I was going to use the word AI, but we'll leave that for next step, because I'm sure that'll actually help us circumvent that situation. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the panel. Thank you very much.